Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is focused on how smaller businesses can leverage marketplaces as a platform for growth. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let everyone get online, and then we'll get started. So please bear with us for a minute or two. Thank you. Thanks for joining, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to let everyone get online, and then we'll get started. So please bear with us. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us, and it's great to have a chance to launch today's webinar, which is focused on how smaller businesses can leverage marketplaces as a platform for growth. My name is Alan Moss, and I'm Managing Director of Western Europe for Newland Payment Technology. We're a leading supplier of payment devices from MPOS through to Smart POS, along with the related infrastructure for those devices. We've certainly seen a lot of growth recently in cashless payments, specifically contactless payments, in the whole pandemic related era. We're also seeing a lot of interest in value-add services, point-of-sale applications that drive footfall or really increase sales for small businesses. Now, as you know, today's seminar is organized by Merchant Payments Ecosystem. Last month, we had a very big online event bringing together more than 800 professionals from merchants through to payment providers. And so certainly we're hoping that next year's event will be in person, vaccines and pandemic permitting. Today, we've got around 180 people registered for the session. We've received some questions already, and we'll be getting to those a little bit later. So really just to set the scene for today's discussion, for me, it was very interesting last year to see how much online activity and retail increased versus in store. So if you look at some of the figures, and this one from Group M eCommerce, there was actually a 25% increase globally for eCommerce sales. And in the US itself, eCommerce went from 16 to 21% of total retail sales. If we look at figures from ACI, we can see that buy online and pick up in store also grew dramatically as a delivery channel. And their sales were up around 70% compared with volumes in 2019. So clearly buying behaviors and even consumer behaviors have shifted with coronavirus. And I think it's very true that small businesses have to adapt to meet very different trading conditions. So if we look at some of the figures that came back from Visa, and they launched a back to business survey at the beginning of this year, and that was based on surveying over 2,000 SMEs in a mix of developed and developing markets. Interestingly enough, 82% of the companies surveyed said that they were adjusting their business. They were introducing digitalization, and they were changing the way they did business to do more online, to do things like accepting contactless payments, to advertise on social media, and even to digitalize back-end functions of their business as well. So today's webinar is sponsored by Limonatique. which is focused on enabling the new world of payments and providing a platform that supports PSPs, acquirers, payment facilitators, marketplaces, and merchants. So I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. Firstly, we have Masha Cilliers. So Masha is a consultant and advisory board member at Limanetic, also working with BE Consultancy. Masha has 25 years experience in payments from blue chip to fintech, and currently provides advice to a range of companies on e-commerce, marketplaces, m-commerce, mobile payments, as well as fraud management. I'd also like to introduce Christophe Bourbier, who's the CEO and co-founder of Limanetic since 2007. And prior to that was a consultant with Capgemini, as well as being a serial entrepreneur, setting up a range of different businesses from phone marketing through to a marketplace for plastic surgeons. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Christophe and Masha.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction, Alan, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I believe the webinar will be recorded and available for you as well, as will the slides. But as always, very keen to hear questions from you, so please put the questions in the Q&A and we will get to as many questions as we can at the end. So as Alan said, I'm Masha Cilliers. I've been in payments since mid-90s, which makes me sound rather old, but also I should hope experienced. I would like to talk today through, there we go, sorry, technology issues, you can't live without them. So first of all, I'd like to focus very much on the small businesses, but not only the challenges they're experiencing, but also the opportunities that digitalization and post-COVID retail can bring to them. Some of the statistics that we've discovered is that astoundingly, over 99% of actual number of businesses in Europe are SMEs. Definitely, I'm based in the UK. In the UK, we call small businesses a cornerstone of our economy. Unsurprisingly, also over 50% of GDP in Europe comes from smaller and medium enterprises. Yet, these are the guys that tend to have a lot more challenges in joining kind of the online revolution. So let's focus then on, what are those challenges that I'm talking about? Well, first of all, most of the small and especially small, but also medium enterprises struggle with going online and selling online. The statistics we've put here, that 2015, only 20% of them engaged through e-commerce against 40% of large firms. Pre-COVID, those numbers were still 20–25%, whilst global companies have, in some cases, have been 90% online. Also, many SMEs are challenged with liquidity. As small companies, they also get paid later by their large buyers. They have to pay suppliers early. So generally, they have a challenge with funding. Many of them also struggle with compliance when it comes to selling online, but also to payments. Not every SME will understand what PCI compliance is, for example. They don't have resources. They don't have dedicated payment people for setting up payments, setting up their shopping carts and their online presence. And here's some other things I'd like to mention as well. So fulfillment and shipping, getting deals, there's no economy of scale to get good deals. So often SMEs have to think of some kind of a click and collect setup again, which is quite difficult to master. Credibility and trust. Yes, most of us don't know about these companies, and they haven't got the marketing budgets of somebody like Amazon or even Marks and Spencer's to get their message out there. And they struggle to expand to new markets, especially internationally, as well as they don't normally have the tools, the sophisticated tools to analyze their customer in order to create offers, new products, or even promote loyalty. So small businesses seem to have the biggest barriers. How can that, okay, how's that going to work? It works this time. So what are the, I'd like to look at two different impact here. First of all, looking at digitalization overall, and then underline the COVID and the most recent developments. So first of all, in globalization, we'll look at statistics. If you're interested, by the way, do ping me afterwards. I have a lot of statistics about cross-border sales and payments and so forth. But generally, global companies are starting to sell cross-border, and the easiest way to sell cross-border is to sell online. So that's driven many of them to digitalize. SMEs are struggling behind, but they also understand that this is one of the key to their survival. Some areas of business have digitalized faster than others. You see for example, food takeaway. Many even small restaurants have kind of jumped upon the fast-moving train of Deliveroo's, Uber Eats, and so forth. Travel potentially is the initial market that digitalized and started selling online 20, 25 odd years ago. Books, various other media. Local retail, however, food retail, clothes, charities, these are lagging behind when it comes to digitalization. The reality is that most SMEs do not have online presence of their own. It is difficult for them to open an online shop. If you think about the costs involved in building a shopping cart, getting yourselves a payment contract, arranging delivery, etc., etc. So SMEs often then look for some kind of aggregators, and in many cases have gone to some of the international global marketplaces. But what we're arguing here is, as well, is that whilst it's great to have multiple international marketplaces such as Amazon and eBay, there's also a lot of space for local niche marketplaces, those that could serve specific interests of consumers, but also of these SMEs for long term, which will not take away the market share from the SMEs. Now let's have a look at the impact of COVID. Now, the pandemic has disproportionately affected the small and medium enterprise. They couldn't adapt to the drastic changes of the consumer behavior, i.e. Lockdowns, restrictions, consumers not wanting to go inside the shops, consumers not wanting to go to the post office to pick up goods sent to them. Many supply chains were disrupted. One of the examples I've used, I think, in some of the previous webinars, and quite a painful one for myself personally, food producers. As we know, we've had shortages in the shops. You couldn't buy eggs, you couldn't buy flour, but yet small producers had a lot of eggs and flour. It's just that they could not sell it directly to consumers, because they couldn't just go and build themselves a web shop to enable them to make those sales. And of course, small local shops already struggling to fight for their customers. We see a lot of small businesses closing in our high street. And at the moment, and specifically, we see that in UK, we see that in France, where many customers have turned to the global marketplaces, and thus the SMEs are really under threat of survival. So the SMEs really need help in digitalizing, both during COVID, but also post-COVID. So I'd like to summarize this with saying, well, I believe that SMEs will want to continue selling online post-pandemic, de-risking the customer base, also understanding the benefits of selling online, understanding the benefits or an ability to sell cross-border, to sell to different types of customers. SMEs will not want to just close the door and come back to the way the things were. Also, they need to survive. Even previously, and I'll give you an example again, I live in London. You can't really buy any tools like screwdrivers, paint near where I live anymore, because most of those shops have closed. So you have to buy it online, or you have to go to big out of town shops. SMEs need to stay relevant to in the world of competition, so they need to match the offer of the global companies, and online is definitely the way to do it. And of course, we keep hearing that again in all the European countries and in the news, that local businesses are key to recovery for many reasons, for consumer experience, for employment, and for the being able to service the market. So what we believe is that local and specialized marketplaces can help them not just survive, but also prosper and compete effectively. But you will ask, how can SMEs take advantage of marketplace economy? It's all very good talking about. And we said, yes, fine, they can open a shop on a large a global marketplace. But what is it that the marketplaces can do, and how can they address the issues for them? Well, there's compliance and cybersecurity. So obviously marketplaces, or indeed any larger retailers, will already have infrastructure in place. So extending that infrastructure to onboard smaller sellers, like some of the large retailers, starting with Amazon, but also Walmart in the US, Manor in Switzerland, have started to use the existing infrastructure, which provides the compliance, which provides payment facilitation, checkout, the seamless end-to-end journey, as well as potentially they're using their fulfillment arrangements they have in place for their own goods. Also, market reputation. So findability of the SMEs through a marketplace, especially if that marketplace is more specific to a particular industry. For example, selling plumbing equipment for consumers from a number of different suppliers. And of course, broader reach, as well as better data analysis. Marketplaces can definitely help economize, therefore cut down cost by scale, and help SMEs. So one thing I want to, a bit trigger happy there, what I want to show you is one of the research that we carried out recently at B, Shaping the Future consulting firm, we've looked at the evolution of marketplaces. You'll see here a timeline where we're looking at of pretty much mid-90s is when we saw emergence of eBay, followed by Amazon, followed by Rakuten. And there were a lot of marketplaces specifically for person-to-person sales or business-to-consumer. That has evolved, and you'll see a lot of familiar names there. Again, I'm not going to go into detail, but we've seen emergence of a range of marketplaces, B2B, B2B2C, B2C, and in some cases even C2B. So the growth, and you can see the large manufacturers who are starting to use the marketplace model to deal with their suppliers and buyers, for example. And you also see some marketplaces which are just building the infrastructure without actually having any product of their own, somebody like Airbnb or Uber. And the same research I just quoted, we've been looking at, so we published some research a year and a half ago, and we've just recently updated it. So again, if you're interested, please ping me afterwards on LinkedIn or through the organizers. Happy to share the research. You'll see that the growth on the left, I have a graph of the B2C. So at the moment, the B2C, well, based on 2020 numbers, which are just kind of coming in, there's about 2.5 trillion of volumes going through B2C marketplaces out there. This is quite significant if you compare the blue graph on the graph on the left, the 2.5 trillion compared to overall online sales of 4.5 trillion is actually a very significant proportion. However, as both the online market is still growing and more retailers and service companies are moving to online, but also as more and more companies are launching marketplace solutions, either themselves or joining other marketplaces, we expect the number to grow almost double, 4.7 trillion by 2025, so in 4 years' time. But more important, if you look at the graph on the right, this is looking at the B2B. So I've talked earlier about some manufacturers dealing with their buyers and suppliers. There's also a big drive for replacement of old procurement systems for both small businesses, medium businesses, and large businesses. It helps to onboard the customer. If you just think about experience of signing up as a seller on Amazon, well, in the B2B environment, effectively, if it takes you 2 days to onboard a supplier, that means that you're, I was talking about disruptive supply chain. That means that you're able to adjust depending on supply and demand. So should there be any challenges we experienced with COVID, or should there be any other disaster, you'll be able to quickly change your model. You're able to onboard different sellers in different markets, or you'll be able to sell to different buyers, again, to different demographics. So whilst at the moment the estimation for B2B marketplaces globally is about 1 trillion, our expectations are that by 2025, that will quadruple to over 4 trillion. So there's huge potential to yet be realized. And I guess I want to summarize my part of this presentation by talking about, so who can become a marketplace platform? You know, we talked about eBay, Amazon, Etsy, we know about those. But what about others? When are we talking about? So are there any examples of kind of normal day-to-day, either companies, organizations becoming marketplaces? There's 2 examples I'd like to give here. One is bookshop.org, which is a UK initiative where if you want to buy books from your local bookshop, you can actually buy them from bookshop.org, which is a marketplace which passes on a large share of profit back to your local bookshop. Another interesting example, and I'll leave to Christophe to talk in more details about it, was a French program run by the government to supply medical professionals with personal protection equipment called stopcovid19.fr, and you can have a look at that online afterwards. And this was effectively, how do you get a number of new suppliers on board fastly, suppliers that can fill the gap that was there at the start of COVID in terms of masks and gloves and gels and so forth. So this was a government, and the other example is you know, kind of a bookshop association. Other examples, I think, fulfillment company. Again, we're talking to some European post offices who say, well, actually, I am providing post office services, so I can deliver. I have a lot of buyers and suppliers. I have relationships with lots of local businesses. Well, perhaps you can also look into providing a marketplace. It could be local government. You know, I give you example of, again, where I live in Fulham, for example, in London, there is a shortage of you know, small businesses are closing. Small businesses have all definitely shut their doors during COVID. Now, if local government would provide something like a virtual marketplace, a virtual high street, where every shop has ability to just onboard and get themselves a shop window, and potentially using the local government's connections for buying fulfillment delivery services at scale. It could be a large retailer. I gave you an example about Manon is a good example in Switzerland, which did that. And effectively, this is what Amazon did at the outset after they were selling books themselves, and they added more and more sellers, and now have more volumes coming through third-party sellers than through themselves selling their own goods and services. It could even be trade association. Again, I talked about plumbers. It could be building materials and a lot more. So again, this is just food for thought. However, marketplaces can face a number of payment challenges. So just summarize some of them, and then Christophe will talk to you about how to overcome those payment challenges. But to become, you know, my example of a post office or an association, well, you need to have certain licensing in order to manage all the funds belonging to third parties. So yes, there is a need to work as a payment or with a payment institution. You need to have a system for onboarding those new sellers quickly. You need to, of course, manage your anti-money laundering and fraud management to ensure security. You need to make sure the funds that you receive before you pay them out to the SMEs are kept securely and ring-fenced. And you need to provide detailed reports in order to reconcile the payments, but also for audit trails. So, Christophe, over to you to talk about how Liminetic can help with resolving those issues, and also about, you know, what trends we see in general about the marketplace adoption of payments.
Okay, thank you, Masha, for that introduction on marketplace, and specifically on, I would say, on SMEs, and how it can help SMEs. So Liminetic, we are a payment platform. Oops, international payment platform. Some people call us orchestrator because we have a lot of payment method connected, so we kind of orchestrate all those payment methods. So as I said, we are an international payment platform. We do, of course, obviously, card transaction. We are a PCI DSS to do so, but we have more than 285 payment method connected. Any type of payments. It could be wallet, payment by installments. It could be very local payment like meal vouchers that are very important for the delivery food industry, for instance, or travel vouchers. It could be pay later type of payments. It could be very local scheme that we can find. And it could be also a lot of B2B payment. You mentioned that amazing growing B2B market with those amazing numbers and increasing, a strong increase in the volume of transactions that are expected. And so at Limonetic, we are doing a lot of B2B transaction, and therefore we need to be able to manage bank transfer as we know them for a long time, like ACH in US or SEPA in Europe. But we have more and more digitalized new type of, I would say, B2B payments that innovate and that at Limonetic we connect to. So 285 payment method connected, a strong coverage, wide coverage, I would say, over 70 countries. So we cover all countries in Europe, obviously, a lot in France as well. But we have launched Senegal a few weeks ago, Malaysia. We have launched India. We have all payment in Asia, in Japan, South Korea, and so on. We are doing a lot also in Africa and are launching also payment in Latam. So international payment platform with a lot of them being very local payment method. Everything has been developed internally. And this has started 10 years ago. So international, but also very centric, very dedicated to marketplace. Because Limonetic and this is the focus of today, the focus of today is marketplace, and Limonetic, we are what we call a agnostic or flexible marketplace payment solution. As we said previously, Limonetic, we do a lot of connections with payment method as a gateway. As I said, 285 payment methods. But also, we know how to collect the funds for those marketplaces, because for marketplace, you have to connect to payment, you have to receive the funds, and you have to dispatch those funds to send them, to settle them to SMEs, which are the vendors on the right of the marketplace. And as you said, Masha, to do so, you need to have some right to do it. And Limonetic is agent of financial institution. And so we have the rights of collecting those funds coming from those different payment methods. And again, there are a lot of them on the international scale. So collect the funds from those different payment methods. And of course, be able to settle those funds to all the SMEs that will want to sell their product on marketplaces. And to settle the funds, to send those funds to vendors of a marketplace, it's not just about reconciliate funds, reconciliate data, which we do as well. It's not just about managing MID and sub-MID, to manage the account of the marketplace and the account of the sub-account, as we say, from vendors. So everything is about, managing fees and money that is owned. It's also about onboarding those SMEs. And as you mentioned, SMEs, they are good at selling, they have good product, but you want to make sure that the UX that you are going to offer on the marketplace is going to be as seamless as possible and as quick as possible. Otherwise, SMEs, for some of them, might be lost. And so this is why we have developed a series of tools that make that onboarding of SMEs and marketplace very quick, very easy to understand, with some nice reporting to make sure that us SMEs understand where they are in the process and what type of documentation might be missing to make sure that we respect the rules, the legal and compliant and risk rules. Okay, so Limonetic, we are what we call an end-to-end marketplace payment platform. And I believe what makes Limonetic very unique here is that first, as I said, we have a lot of international payments methods, B2C and B2B, but also because we can interchange any of the components that we've described here with existing components. So as I said, Limonetic is a gateway, but we can integrate any existing gateway to do that end-to-end marketplace service. We can collect funds because we are agent of payment institution, but we can interchange that with an existing payment institution that would like to have its own marketplace service. Same for acquirers. We can play with any type of acquirers, credit card acquirers, or alternative payment acquirers. And we know how to do payout. We can do payout and send money in Europe. But when it comes to very international payout outside of Europe, at some time you have to connect to specific payout providers like Payoneer or Tunes or Hyper Wallet. And when you do so, then you have to make sure that you're able to connect those guys to your marketplace setup. Okay. And to make sure as well that you want to have a very easy to launch type of services, well, one need to make sure that you are already connected with all the very important and strategic marketplace type of ISV, as we name them, like Miracle, and Limonetic is a Miracle certified partner, and we do a lot of marketplace with Miracle. So international marketplace, and as we said, very agnostic. So let me give you an example of what means agnosticity. Masha, you mentioned Manor. Manor is a kind of is a big retail shop in Switzerland, and Manor, before the COVID, has decided to launch its own marketplace to offer more products on their website, to offer more services on their website, and to make this happen very quickly, they've decided to become a marketplace. But Manor, they wanted to make sure that they could still work with their very good payment partner that they have been working for years with. And Manor has been using Six Payment as an acquirer for years. They have been using SafePay for years on their website. And when they said and came to Limonetic and said, we want to launch a marketplace, but we want that to happen with SafePay as a gateway for credit card and a few Switzerland payment method. And we want to use Six as an acquirer. We say, okay, fine. We are going to make this happen for you very easily, thanks to our agnostic payment platform. And at the end of the day, for Manor, what was very important to them is to make sure that for them, it remained very easy to integrate and to use. So one API for them, one back office, one reconciliation, one contract, and it's done. Okay, so different components, but one single integrated solution for them to use on a day-to-day basis. We have also integrated Cash Sentinel, that is a very specific local Switzerland payment institution, because Switzerland is not completely part of Europe, and that's why we had to do that very specific integration for them. And for some payment method that are missing on SafePay, we also do the processing of those payment methods. So Manor is a good example, and it's a B2C example. And we have here two other marketplaces, Siemens and Tetrapak, two different brands, both of them being B2B. Siemens, just to make it clear, they sell IRM to hospital, and an IRM, to do pictures of your body, is a complex product because it's a heavy product to deliver. It's a complex product to set up in a hospital. It's a product that you need to train doctors and all the staff around to use an IRM. And the objective of Siemens was to not just sell an IRM, but to make sure that they could also provide all the side services that comes from SMEs that make IRM setup very easy. And so they want to offer IRM on their marketplace, but they want to also offer the delivery of those IRM, the setup of those IRM, the training of those IRM, and delivery, setup, spare part training is being done by local partners that they have in different countries in Europe and in the rest of the world. And they want to offer all of that in one stop shopping solution for their hospital. Okay, so that's what to do. That's what they are doing in Europe first, and then the rest of the world. And they do that with all their SMEs partner in all those countries. And here again, they wanted to have one API, one back office, one easy to use marketplace tool, but they really wanted to do that with BNP Paribas and acquirers, WebHelp as a payment institution. And for them, it was very important to have access to digital payments like Visa, of course, but also it was very, very important for them to accept bank transfer payment, that are very numerous in the B2B world. So bank transfer payments with all the complexity that is around or associated with bank transfer, because the bank transfer is a deferred payment. It happens end of month, 30 days or 60 days, end of month. You might need to do some tuning sometime. Reconciliation is not that easy because bank transfer might, generate a few mistakes sometime when the bank transfer is initiated by the buyers in the company. And so you need to make sure that you are going to be good at reconciliate all those bank transfer in real time. And this is also why Limonetic, currently we are adding a lot of new type of B2B bank transfer innovative solution that leverage on PSD2, initiated payments, to make sure that those B2B payments will leverage on innovation that is all around thanks to that PSD2 innovation that comes with it. Okay, so that's what we do at Limonetic. We do marketplaces, very customizable marketplaces with the component that might be strategic for the merchant that wants to become a marketplace. And we do that, as you have understood, in B2C, but also a lot of B2B, and mainly for international marketplace that wants to accelerate their penetration outside of in Europe, but also outside of Europe. You can see here a few marketplace merchants, and it's only a few of them that are clients of Limonetic directly or indirectly. But some of them here, including Stop COVID, that Masha mentioned, that we have built, that is very important with WebHelp, payment institution partner, and also with Miracle. And this has been launched in less than 15 days, or 3 weeks, just when we were locked down in Europe in last year, in April and May. And the objective of that marketplace was to make sure that we would avoid the bottleneck in the procurement of all masks and gloves and gel that was missing at that time. And so government have asked to launch that marketplace to have a direct connectivity in between buyers and all the SMEs that were able to offer and to supply all those masks, gloves, and gel. And all wholesalers at that time were also locked down, and so they were having. That's why we were having a bottleneck here, and that marketplace that has been quickly launched has helped to unlock. I would say that bottleneck at that time. Okay, and as we said, we are connected to Miracle and also Eurocommerce. That is a very B2B focused CMS and marketplace ISV in Europe and also in US. That's it for I believe for Limonetic and for marketplace and our ability to launch B2C B2B marketplace in Europe and the rest of the world.
Great, thank you for that, Christophe, and thank you, Masha. And I love the Stop COVID-19 example. I think that's really topical and obviously very relevant. But looking at what happened last year, you know, we were talking about SMEs and, you know, how SMEs have had to adapt. But we've actually got a question here, and this one was coming from Toro Lin at Novati Group. And he was also asking about consumer purchasing behavior. So in terms of things like product value, product type, purchasing frequency, I mean, I guess you must have seen a lot of changes on that side as well. Masha, is that something that you can comment on?
Sure. So I think what we've seen, I mean, generally, if you look, I was just looking at a couple of British retailers recently and looking at the average size of the basket. And that has definitely grown quite significantly during COVID. I think it will, there is a lot of variations between different types of retailers, obviously the goods and services, right? So if people are interested in, obviously the food stuff was important, the toilet paper was important, see, the travel wasn't quite as important anymore. So what we have seen, but as I said, I think what the interesting studies will be post-COVID to see how much that behavior stayed. I think one of the interesting things we've seen is a lot more demographics coming online. So I'm definitely excited about that. As you've seen, you know, the obvious ones, kind of the older demographic, had to start shopping online, you know, be that supermarket shops or ordering food delivery, what have you. Then also with that, there's been a lot of challenges in terms of the actual availability of payment products for those types of new demographics. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we were talking about some people from the schemes, Visa and MasterCard, and they were working actively with supermarkets to ensure that actually some people could pay because they might not have had a card or an online payment method. So I think, again, the strengths of what Christophe was talking about, that ability for the marketplace, when you're building a marketplace, ability to accept a range of payment methods and be flexible is very important, because you never know what might be the new trend, right? So if you're getting a demographic that hasn't got one payment, are you able to switch on another payment very quickly would be also an important thing to think about. But generally, I think some transactions have gone up significantly, some obviously have gone down, but we've seen in general the frequency and amount of baskets for consumer goods, kind of day-to-day goods, have gone up.
Yeah, and that's clearly you know, part of that big increase in general online shopping. But what about on a merchant perspective? I mean, you talked there about some of the differences in demographic, but what about in SME segments? Are you seeing the benefits of marketplaces being very centered on a specific type of SME? I mean, you mentioned anything from medical supplies through to local bookshops. So are the advantages of marketplaces more relevant for some SME segments than others?
Well, but I can say something, and then Christophe, maybe you want to add. You know, definitely looking again from some of the UK examples. If you think about it, you know, SMEs often have a narrow segment that they target. So, for example, a shop selling screwdrivers that I was talking about earlier, right, will be most of their trade comes from builders. So they're unlikely to sell to housewives quite to the same degree, because that's how they're structured and that's the people they advertise to, and that's the word of mouth marketing that they receive. But the question post-COVID is, why not expand your the demographics you sell to by being able to target the housewives and to target the youngsters and to target whoever else? Because again, the housewives or the youngsters might be buying more online. So availability online will not just, so you're not cannibalizing your physical audience, if you like, your physical customers, but you're actually adding new customers. So I think that's where it's very important. I think, especially for the high street, to be able to service the breadth of customers, you need to use multiple channels.
Yeah, and to add on the top of that, I believe, so you are saying then you can sell your screwdriver to the builders, but also to the housewife. And I believe that for SMEs, there is also the geographical, dimension that has to be taken into account, because I mean, a shop, maybe before COVID, and also before we get used to all those delivery guys that we can see everywhere, not because of COVID only, but also thanks to Uber Eats and Deliveroo guys and takeaway guys and Just Eat guys. So we can see delivery guys everywhere, and COVID has accelerated that use of delivery guys, and not just for food, but also for any type of SMEs, of sellers. And so that delivery service that is very important when you do online, unless you offer the click and collect, but that those delivery service that now you can see everywhere, well, the screwdriver shop could use it very easily as well and associate that type of service to its screwdriver. So yes, it opens up to the housewife, but not only the housewife that is in the street where the shop is, but maybe also the housewife that is at the other side of the city that had no idea that this shop could exist, and that now can be reachable because of those delivery guys and delivery service that have been completely democratized with the last few years, and including thanks to COVID, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about delivery, I was watching a program this morning on the use of drones increasingly in deliveries. So maybe a drone is going to take the screwdrivers direct to the end of the street. But just coming back to the area that we're really focused on, which I guess is the payment part. Masha, you were talking about local payments, talking about the need to handle the needs of different demographics. But what is your general view on alternative payments and the role they play in marketplaces?
I think I mean, I don't want screwdrivers, by the way, being dropped on my head by drones just yet. I think it does play, alternative payment methods play a very important role. And again, alternative, well, now we call them local payment methods, right? Because they're not all that alternative anymore. I think there's different ways to look at it. What is Apple Pay an alternative payment method or not? From the point of, well, actually, it still goes through your card, most likely. It's not, but to the consumer, it is. It's a different way to pay. It's not getting the card out; it's getting the phone out. And I think different demographics are used to making different payments. So not being able to serve them with a payment option they want does turn the customers away. And there's a long argument about it depends on how long, how important your service is for the customer, how kind of keen they are to get it versus whether it's just a luxury item and they won't kind of take it or leave it. And if the payment page doesn't offer what they want, they'll just go off. So that those arguments all stand. But I think in terms of the more you want to broaden the products, the services, or the segment to whom you sell, the more you need to think about the payments and alternative payments. And with all of that, we see definitely with PSD2 and instant payments, there's a big drive about direct bank payments. In some countries, they've embraced it for many years, like Holland or Germany or the Nordics. In UK, there's quite a lot of new products being launched where you can pay directly from your bank. Consumers will start getting used to it and consumers will start demanding those payments. So being able to offer them, I'm not saying offering every payment under the sun to every consumer, but the more you can offer, the more you can understand the dynamics, and then you can decide what type of customer, what type of payment method, in what circumstances. Over mobile, you offer one thing. On web, you offer another thing. To a German, you offer one thing. To UK customer, another.
Well, and on that point, Masha, we actually have a request from Ricardo Porta at My Bank, and he's basically saying, when are you planning to integrate My Bank in Limonetique? So I understand that My Bank is bank transfer payments, and the whole benefit of My Bank is that they can increase the average ticket size. So are you supporting functionality like that today?
So we know My Bank. that is well developed in Italia. We don't support yet my bank, but we integrate maybe 2-3 payment method amounts at Limonetic, and we do that every month, depending on business cases, depending on countries where marketplace and merchant that are our clients wants to develop. And so lately we have just launched Malaysia last month, and also Senegal, for instance. And so very keen on adding new payment methods on the top of the 285 that we have today, B2C, B2B again. And if there are any BKs that are marketplaces that would be interested with that, then we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, and Ricardo was also wondering if you're planning on coming to Italy. So I can't remember whether you mentioned that Italy is a market you serve already, but
I will contact you, Ricardo.
Okay, Ricardo, you got the answer.
Yeah, Ricardo, you can help us. I think we've been trying to tackle Italy for some time, and it's Italian market is a really good example of Italian market is served by a lot of SMEs, right? And most of those SMEs are not actually online. So ability, we are in talks with some Italian payment companies and also some potential intermediaries for marketplaces, but we're very excited to talk about it.
Excellent. So just moving on from that, we also have a question from Alemu Tesfaye Meron, I think it is. Apologies if I didn't get the name right there, or is it Meron Alemu Tesfaye? But anyway, the question is, what is the UATP part in the marketplace? So I think you mentioned UATP, Christophe. You're laughing, so you're going to have to pick this one up.
Yes, I take that one. Yes, indeed, we have UATP written here. So UATP, for those who don't have this in mind, is the a scheme that is dedicated to travel. By the way, that is the first scheme that has ever been launched, I believe, even before Visa and MasterCard. And UATP, we use that because we can, thanks to UATP, we can generate what we call one-time use card or virtual dynamic cards. You might have heard of those words. So this is a credit card with no plastic around. And so we can use that sometime when we need in a marketplace setup that would be around travel, obviously, and airlines. When you need to, send money to a specific airlines or a tour operator, you might want more airlines, sorry. You might want to issue this type of UATP one-time use card to pay the airline through their existing gateway. So it's a mean for us of payments in the travel airline industry in case there is a need to do so, and it's a very time to market way to operate.
Okay, good description. Just moving, a bit to the other side of the world here. We have a question from Alex Ferreira in Sao Paulo, which is how you manage the integration between online and offline payments to really create an omni-channel payment system. Is that something you support both online and in store, let's say?
Well, to online, in-store, it becomes more and more hard to make a distinction, with the rise of, mobile POS solution, QR code, and so on. The limit in between online, mobile, and in the shop is shrinking, I would say. And so, yes, everything we do online, actually, we also offer it in store. Okay, so when we offer Alipay WeChat online, well, we can offer as well the acceptance of those payment method in store, thanks to some QR code scanning type of setup. Okay, and for us and for the merchant, for the marketplace, there will be no distinction in between the two type of payment. Of course, in the back office, the marketplace will see if this payment has been done through the desktop, or if it has been done thanks to a scan of the QR code of the Alipay or the WeChat holder. But at the end of the day, that's a digital payment for us. Okay, so as we have more and more digital payments that are that can play online, but as well that offer some QR code solution, then yes, we can manage the two type of I would say channel very easily, and it remains very seamless for the merchant.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're fully omni-channel today.
Yeah, what we don't do, to make it very clear, what we don't do is processing of credit card, which remain important in some countries. In some countries online, we don't do processing of the credit card itself, so we can play with everything else than credit card.
Yeah. So Masha, just coming back to you, because I know we were talking about this a bit before, and we were kind of saying, well, if everyone's moving on to big global marketplaces and becoming very dependent on those platforms, how can SMEs really differentiate? So I know you've got some strong views on that. So, if everyone's using a marketplace, how can the SMEs really, make their presence felt, let's say?
And I think that's the channel question, right? That this is it's valid also for do you sell everything online or offline, or how do you not cannibalize your market? I think whilst, and I had that question a couple of years ago when we did on a physical panel, not a virtual one, and I think for many SMEs, going to sell through existing global kind of international marketplaces is quite attractive in terms of scaling up and building a channel for online. However, the challenge is that they might get their own image gets diluted if they just sell through, say, Amazon or just sell through eBay. So and the questions normally are about, so how do you keep your own identity and yet sell through the marketplaces? And I think really this is where, again, I push that point of supporting and working with local specialized marketplaces is very important. Putting pressure on local organizations, your associations, government, and depending on the obviously the sector you're in, will help launch more of those platforms, and platforms that are specific. You could have platforms that give a lot more branding to the SMEs. Again, we keep using Amazon as an example, but that one is very much, it's Amazon brand. Most people think they're actually buying from Amazon rather than from third parties. But there's different ways of doing that. With other marketplaces, you're actually very aware that you're buying from some third party, and it's more of a, and as I said, shop window facilitation with all the back-end office services such as payment or fulfillment done in the background. So I think, to your question, it should be part of the strategy. It shouldn't replace your strategy to market entirely. It should be part of strategy. And even within your marketplace strategy, you should think about working not just through big international global marketplaces, but also through some local marketplaces, the growth of which will give you more power as well.
So these are all parallel channels at the end of the day for small businesses.
Exactly. And then you keep, if you keep on the top of your statistics, on the top of your demographic, you may well decide, for example, in UK, I sell through my own shop, as many brands do. And then in another country, I sell through another. US is very famous for that. A lot of US brands sell directly in the US, and they sell through, it's not quite marketplace. I'd say it's predecessor of marketplaces. Those were the shopping carts, which effectively took possession of the goods and then sold it, say, in Europe. But they use some other distribution partners because they found that for them actually to go out there and set shop in Europe and to pay local taxes and to register for VAT, etc., was too complicated. So they use intermediaries. In the same way, you look at marketplaces as your channel, and it could be just for the online traffic. It could be just for a new segment. It could be just for another country.
Excellent. Now we're getting very close to the end of the session. So as a last test for Christophe, could you give us the Limonetique value proposition in 3 easy bullets that we can take away?
I can do that. I would say international, B2C, B2B, and with any component that a merchant marketplace might want to use, we can do it.
Very good. Excellent. So thank you for that. A very big thanks to Limonetique as the sponsor of today's webinar. I'd like to thank Masha and Christophe as the speakers. Also, a big thanks to the team with Philip at MP. As Masha mentioned during this session, a webinar will be available together with a presentation, and you'll be able to download that tomorrow. So if you registered, you'll be notified about that option. So with the time getting just past the hour, I'd like to say thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I said, please, if you have questions, shoot them to us on LinkedIn or through Luminatic website. Happy to answer. I've got a few questions already on LinkedIn, so send more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.